That tree is probably the oldest tree. This here is all the pasture. None of this was cleared out. There's a little stream bed back here. Matter of fact, if you look over there through that little opening, you'll see some of the original fencing. I forgot to call it to your attention that we left up for historical purposes from when it was a cattle ranch. But this tree, strangler fig, is actually a parasitical tree. It starts its life out as an epiphyte, meaning an air plant. That seed will be placed there by a bird or defecated or what have you. And that seed will begin growing, it'll throw out roots, throw out limbs, and eventually it will surround its host and suck out all the nutrients and kill it off. What you're looking at here looks like a series of different trees coming out of one tree, different roots all wound around. Well, that basically is showing you that dynamic of that species of tree. That's all things that it's just wrapped around as it's grown bigger and bigger and just killed it off and started a new growth. The other thing about this tree as opposed to the papaleo tree, it is a big host for all kinds of air plants. And you can look above you here, you can see some wild orchids, there's some bromeliads, there's also some wild anthurium there that looks like the big fern. And then, see that climbing vine going up the tree there? Anybody know what that is?
Vanilla.
Very good. That is a vanilla orchid, as a matter of fact. How many of you knew that vanilla actually comes from an orchid? Not many of you. Okay, well, let me tell you about that. Well, we can turn around right here. I got one that's a little easier to look at. This is a vanilla orchid right here. There are, I believe, about 20 or 30 species of vanilla. There's only 2, however, that are used to produce vanilla. They are naturally occurring in northern Central America and in Mexico. Until the Spaniards arrived, this species of orchid was not found anywhere else in the world except in Central America and Mexico. The Aztecs were using vanilla when the Spaniards arrived, and this orchid, the way the vanilla is produced, primarily in the summer it will begin blooming, and they'll be little, and they look just like orchids, buds out of underneath parts of these leaves. Those flowers will harden up and create a seed pod, which is green, and it's about yay big and thin, maybe about 1 inch thin. And those pods are harvested, and in the old days they just put them out in the sun to dry. Now I believe they do it commercially in kilns, or maybe sometimes the old-fashioned way as well. But when you buy vanilla beans, you're basically just buying a dried vanilla orchid seed pod. A lot of people don't realize that. They just, how do they make a bean out of vanilla? Well, it's actually a seed pod that has been dried. Now, the other thing about vanilla is that if any of you are bakers and like to use vanilla and are looking for good vanilla extract that is the real thing and not mechanically produced, this would be a good place to buy it because it'll be a lot cheaper than up north, and it's the real deal. A lot of vanilla stores in Vallarta, you've probably seen plenty of them. They've got a big vanilla display in Walmart even. I mean, you know, it's very popular. A lot of people purchase vanilla here. Now, the thing about vanilla, it is now a worldwide industry. Kind of an interesting story about colonial wisdom. The Spaniards knew that this was an orchid and it liked tropical environments, and they had a lot of colonial holdings that were in tropical areas in the Caribbean, South America, etc. And so they decided they wanted to expand this vanilla industry, that they were going to get rich real quick, and they started planting vanilla all over everywhere, and it was growing great. It never bloomed. They never could make vanilla beans. They didn't know why. How come they do it in Mexico, but they can't do it here? Well, in the 1840s, a young man that was working out of the vanilla fields, he must have been quite scientifically inclined, discovered a unique bee that was the pollinator of the vanilla orchid. That unique bee is only found where the orchids were originally found, northern Central America and Mexico. So if it was growing in, Thailand, great, but it wasn't ever going to get pollinated, never bloomed. So that kid actually, at the same time, figured out how to hand pollinate vanilla, and since then it has become a worldwide industry. Mexico at one time had a monopoly on the production of vanilla. At this point, I believe we're only about the number 4 producer. I think Madagascar and Indonesia are the leading producers of vanilla, and it's all hand pollinated, making it a very, very expensive spice, as most of you know, second only to saffron, which is the most expensive spice in the world.